Today I will be walking you through the process of how I am planning on custom quilting my latest quilt pattern called Dicey Log Cabin. Now, if you do happen to like this quilt pattern and would like to make it yourself, I will have a link for it down below in the description, and there is already a video out. Now, Dicey Log Cabin does have a layout that is very improv style, so it's kinda, you literally just slap it together, so to speak. Now, yours will look different, but I tried creating a illustration of random placements for the block. That way it can give you an idea on how you can go about custom quilting this as well. Now, I am using the program that is called Photoshop. Like I said, I created an illustration version of the quilt, then I uploaded it in Photoshop. That way I can go ahead and draw these designs. Now, what you can do personally is take a picture of your quilt and upload the photo within Photoshop, and then you can draw on your quilt as well. Now, if you do not have Photoshop, because Photoshop is a monthly subscription, another option that I personally know of, if you want to do it digitally, is you can take a picture with like an iPad and then upload that photo within Procreate, which is an app on an iPad, and you can go ahead and draw like how I am doing it, like so. Another version you can do if you don't have an electronical device is you can get a large sheet of acrylic and get like something thin because that way it's not too heavy for you, and get a semi-large size, like larger than a sheet of paper, and you can lay it on top of your quilt block and then use like a dry erase marker and then kind of draw on the acrylic, not on your quilt but on the acrylic, or like a template plastic or something like that. And those are some ideas that you can do to help draw and come up with things to custom quilt your own quilts. But anyways, with all that set aside, let's go ahead and dive into this quilt, and I'm going to show you how I am going about it. Now, because this quilt is very random and improv-y, I still want to do something a little bit simple. Now, what I am going to be focusing on here is the 45-degree diagonals on the quilt. So only looking at the 45-degree diagonals, I'm going to draw a line just to show you of where they will be looking at. Okay, I went ahead and quickly drew all of the lines that are 45-degree angle. Now, let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit more. Now, as you can see, these are all of the 45-degree lines, and we've kind of divided it into this maze looking like structure. Now, we are going to take each section at a time and kind of quilt an all over design within each section. So, as an example, I'm just going to get, let's do hot blue, I guess. And I'm going to show you some of these sections. So, for instance, here would be all quilted one style. Then there's this triangle right here. Then we have a triangle over here. Now I'm going to get another color, do neon green, and all of this would technically be filled in, and that right there is a much larger section. Now let me grab one more color. Let's do purple, and this right over here is another large section that we can fill in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an all over quilt pattern, but kind of subdividing these sections up still. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase those, and I'm going to get a new layer just to make it easier. That way we still have our red lines. And let's go ahead and zoom in, and we will start here on the left hand side. What I'm going to do is on my Longarm machine, potentially not in this order, it just depends how your layout is, but I will probably stitch in the ditch first. So I'm going to go over the red and I'm going to stitch in the ditch the diagonal lines. And then I'll probably come up, then come to the corner, come down, and from there I might actually tie off and then cut thread and start all over in a different area. And then what I'll do is from the diagonal lines, I'm going to echo the shape or the section maybe about a 1/4 inch, give or take. So I'll echo a 1/4 inch. And since we hit this bottom diagonal, I'm going to go up, echoing it, and then come directly back up. Then I'll probably travel on the top and then do this center bit, which would do a 1/4 inch like so. Then I'll probably just like come out and echo around it, and then a 1/4 inch back down. Now I want to fill it in. Now you can do whatever type of fill that you are most comfortable with. If you want to do a very long feather, go for it. If you want to do clam shells, you can go ahead and start filling that in with clam shells. If you want to do doodle style quilting, then fill it all in with the doodling. Or you can do rainbows. You can do really anything. Just go ahead and fill all that in. And I would actually recommend, because this is a scrappy quilt, maybe not go too densely on the style of quilting, because it's scrappy. That means more than likely you're using whatever in your stash, or if you're using a layer cake like this pattern is designed for, you're going to have a lot of large prints or just prints in general, and you don't want to necessarily distract those very beautiful fabrics with super dense packed quilting. But I'm going to go ahead and fill that out, and that section is done. Now let's go ahead and grab another color. We'll do neon green next. Then we're going to go ahead and travel more to the right. Now, because this line is already stitched in the ditch, what I would do is probably start from this point, travel up and make it there, then tie off, and then maybe come back down here and go all the way down as far as I can, and then either continuing stitching in the ditch until I get to a point where I can tie off. So in this case, I could make it all the way down here and then come back up. Then I could travel all the way over, come back down, maybe tie off, or if I want, I could travel back up, then back down, travel back up, then across, and down again. But whichever you prefer. But if you want to go ahead and tie off here where we ended, instead of back traveling back up, you can go ahead and do that. But I know some people do not like to create a lot of tie-offs in their quilting, and that's okay. But let's go ahead and remove that because I want to subdivide this section over here as an example. And what I would do in this scenario is once again do a 1/4 inch, echoing the stitch in the ditch on the 45-degree lines, come out, come around, hit that point. Now we're going to go to the left and then back up. Then I'll probably travel down and then do the 1/4 inch on the other side. So come up. And what I recommend is just take each section at a time. however you would like to do it. And then once you have completed your echoes, then once again, go ahead and fill it in. And I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly with Clam Shells. And there is that section completed. So as you can see, you probably are starting to get the picture and the idea now. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more just in case. And let's go ahead and do neon orange for this section because we kind of have a flying geese triangle here in the center. Now, in this scenario, what you can do is I would probably start here, stitch in the ditch, then that way I can travel and then create my 1/4 inch echo and then filling it all out like so. And then of course, let's do one more. We'll do neon blue. And in this scenario, I may start here and then stitch in the ditch, come down, come back up, and then I can tie off and then maybe start over here. Or actually, now that I'm looking at this, start here on the green, come up, down, up, and then across. Then that way I can go ahead and do my echo and then go ahead and filling it all in. Now I am doing clam shells at the moment right here because the fabric I am using and the type of prints, it's very feminine, and plus there's a lot of straight lines and harsh geometry, and I like to actually pair that up with a curve quilting. So if there's a lot of line work, then I like to quilt curves to kind of give it like opposites attract sort of scenario. And I do think it complements each other a little bit better. But if you don't like doing clamshells, then of course you don't have to do clamshells. It's clamshells are kind of one of my favorite things just because when I started learning how to custom long arm quilt, it was actually the first thing I could do somewhat good looking. So I kind of fell in love with it because I kept doing it all the time. But I'm actually going to do a new version of a clamshell within this quilting that is still feminine, which I'll show you here in a minute once I am done. And just like that. Now, because we have that little section in the corner, I'm going to do that. And let's go back to a pink. So that diagonal line is already stitched in the ditch. So we just need to create the echo. And then lastly, fill it in, which won't take too long. Now, I know I said I was going to show you the new design, but let me fill that out real quick. There we go. So now you can kind of see the pattern, what I am trying to go for. So you are creating a maze within your quilt, and then you're going to fill out your maze. Now you don't have to do the 1/4 inch echo, but doing so, I think it kind of really accentuates that design and these weird, awkward shapes that are giving us that maze-like look. But I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and I'm going to show you the type of clamshell that I am actually going to be quilting. And first, we're going to do like a paisley shape here in the middle. And then I'm going to bounce out, and instead of echoing it as a similar shape, I'm actually just going to wiggle, come down, and then come out, and then wiggle around. So it's a little more flourishy, more girly, which I thought would be perfect with the fabric that I had used. Now, you don't have to do a paisley shape. What you can do is just do a standard clamshell shape and then echo around with a wavy and then come out and echo around with a wavy. So whichever you prefer, but this is the type of design I will be doing, but it is easier to draw and illustrate a regular clamshell. Now, one more thing before I let you all go. Because this design kind of trickles down, which let me show you. If you look at this large section right here, it is technically all connected because you can go up to the left, down, right, up, right, back down. And that is all intertwined with each other. Now, most long arm quilters, usually the smallest I've seen to my knowledge has been an 18-inch throat space. So all of this will not fit on the frame for you to quilt all at once. So you're going to have to take it in pieces. So for that, I'm going to create a scenario where a situation like that may happen. So let me grab a new layer and I'm going to draw lines across to pretend that this is the space my long arm machine will allow me to quilt. And that is the hot pink section, and we're going to draw here in the middle. Now, let me get a new color that might be a little easier. We'll go neon green. Now, as you can see here on the left, I could stitch in the ditch and make it to that point and then come back down. Or in this scenario, I would probably actually start from the center, come up, and then come back down. That way I can go ahead and echo, and I'll come back down, and I'll go as high as I can. Now, because that's as far as I can with my throat space on my machine, I will continue my design and probably make it across to where I am a 1/4 inch on the diagonal line. But I'm over here, so then I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch from what would be the stitch in the ditch. Now, I may have it already quilted out, the stitch in the ditch is what I'm talking about, or I may do that next because if I end out over here, then probably I would go back and then stitch in the ditch. Once again, each scenario may be different for everyone, so just take it one step at a time. Now, once I hit the end, I more than likely will probably tie off, break thread, and then because I started over here on the fill, I'll probably tie off in here and then start creating my shape and fill. Now I won't fill it out again because you all previously saw it up there. But we'll go ahead and scribble, and that is all filled in because it is within my machine throat space. Now let me grab another color so you can see. We are going to pretend that this top section, or I should say this section, is already quilted because it is above the pink line. What I would do is when I am quilting this section out, there's my echo, using a fabric erasable marker or like a chalk pen, I would draw maybe like a squiggle like so. But then with my machine, I will custom quilt and fill in, but kind of stay away and within that shape of the line that I drew. Now it is invisible, it will erase or dry or iron off, whichever you use, or rub off, but I will quilt that in because when I roll my machine or when I roll my quilt up, what I will do is when it comes time to quilt this section now, I'm actually going to be filling in like so, and then I'll fill and mesh the two designs together. That way it looks a little bit more cohesive because if we go over here to the right side and here's the line right there, if I just were to have quilted, did my echo, there's probably a line there. If I went ahead and fill as far down as my machine's throat space would let me, and then I'm going to go ahead and scribble this real quick. Then I rolled my quilt up, And now I'm going to quilt off this next section, and I'm able to come all the way down, around, just like so. If I start filling it in, it might, depending on what design you use, look like there is an invisible line right here. Now, like I said, it might because it all depends on what type of fill you're using. Now, this is why I recommend, draw a little squiggle. It doesn't have to be like drastic, but just give you like a little bit of a wavy line. So that way, when you do advance your quilt, you can nest your new quilting within the pattern so it doesn't necessarily look like you had to advance your quilt up. Now, that's a little tip for long arm quilters who are on a frame. If you are doing this on a domestic and you're pushing your quilt around like on a table, then of course you won't necessarily need to do this because you can just keep quilting this whole entire section. And look, that one's really long. Oh, and it comes all the way down there. So that would actually be really cool because it starts pretty much at the top and makes its way all the way back down. But yeah, I do hope that makes sense because I know it can be a little bit confusing. But if you do have any questions, don't be nervous to ask. Go ahead and drop them down in the comments down below, or go ahead and send me an email and I will get to you as soon as I can. But go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell because the next video coming out will be me actually long arm quilting this on my frame. So if you would like to see that, go ahead and subscribe.